This is an RTX 5070 Ti, a fairly modern GPU released in the big 2025. And this is my old GPU, the RTX 3070. I kind of expected there to be a lot of transistors in these cards, but I didn't expect it to be a whopping 45.6 billion in the 5070 Ti. And all of that fits into a chip that only has an area of 378mm. Meanwhile, the 3070's chip is actually bigger at 392mm square, even though it only has 17.4 billion transistors. I mean, 17.4 billion is still a lot, but the 5070 Ti can fit almost 3 times as many transistors while taking less space. It doesn't even make any sense. So let's make some sense out of it. Nvidia's very first graphics card, the NV1, came out in 1995. It had just 1 million transistors. They were laid out on a silicon wafer through an insanely precise process called photolithography. Photolithography begins by coating a silicon wafer with a layer of photoresist, a light-sensitive material that reacts when exposed to ultraviolet light. A photomask which contains a circuit design is then placed over the wafer to selectively block or allow UV light through. When the wafer is exposed, it leaves behind a precise pattern on its surface, which we need to immediately dip in a developer. Then comes the most important part. Pure silicon is a crystal where electrons aren't free to move, so it doesn't conduct electricity. To fix this, engineers dope silicon by adding tiny amounts of other atoms. Phosphorus has one extra electron compared to silicon, so that electron is free to move, making N-type silicon. Boron has one less electron, leaving an empty spot for another electron to jump in, making P-type silicon. By passing voltage, electrons from N-type can fill the empty spots in P-type, creating a path for current to flow. This tiny flow of electrons repeated endlessly makes the microchip perform trillions of calculations every second to render Cyberpunk at 60 FPS. All of this fits inside a chip that's less than 2 cm by 2 cm in area. In the 5070 Ti, because there are 45.6 billion transistors, if you place the tip of a pencil on this chip, it would cover roughly 24 million transistors. With this, we can play Cyberpunk at 60 FPS even with ray tracing on. Going back almost a decade, a high-end GPU like the GTX 1080 Ti had about 12 billion transistors in a larger chip. A pencil tip on this chip would contain about 6.4 million transistors. With the GTX 1080 Ti, we can play The Witcher 3 or GTA 5 smoothly at 100 FPS, and it could handle around 11 trillion calculations per second. Another decade back, in 2005, a GPU like GeForce 7800X had 302 million transistors. Placing a pencil tip here would hold only about 156,000 transistors. Yet back in 2005, this was enough to play Half-Life 2 at 100 FPS. And even back then, it managed about 200 billion calculations per second. Finally, at the very beginning, the Nvidia NV1 from 1995 had just 1 million transistors. Yet this was enough power to play Virtua Fighter at 60 FPS. From a million transistors to billions, the smaller they got, the bigger we built.